Today, we are going to decode a deadline that you see absolutely everywhere. It's this huge global mission that's pretty much set to define our century, achieving net zero by the year 2050. 2050. It feels like it's everywhere, doesn't it? It's pitched as this monumental, non-negotiable deadline for all of humanity. You know, the ultimate finish line in our race against climate change. But beyond just the year itself, what are we actually racing towards? We've all heard the deadline a million times. But what exactly is the goal? Let's really break it down. Okay, so to understand the journey, we have to start with the destination. So what in the world does net zero actually mean? So at its core, net zero is all about one word: balance. It's not about getting rid of all emissions completely. No, it's about reaching a tipping point, a state of equilibrium where any greenhouse gases we do put into the atmosphere are perfectly matched by the amount we actively pull back out. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. Net zero is not the same as absolute zero. See, absolute zero would mean stopping all emissions, period. An incredibly tough challenge. Net zero is, well, it's a bit more pragmatic. It acknowledges that some things like, say, aviation or heavy industry are just insanely hard to completely decarbonize. So the focus shifts to achieving that critical balance instead. So if it's all about balance, how do we actually tip the scales in our favor? Well, that brings us to what you could call the net zero equation. Okay, let's simplify this with an analogy that makes it super easy to picture. Imagine our atmosphere is a giant global bathtub. For the last couple of centuries, we've had the fossil fuel tap running at full blast, just pouring in greenhouse gases. And, as you'd guess, the water level is getting dangerously high. Now, to get to net zero, we have to do two things at the exact same time. First, we need to turn that tap way, way down. That means slashing the amount of new emissions we're adding. And while we're doing that, we also need to open up the drain, maybe even unclog it a bit, to start pulling out the carbon that's already filled up the tub. So let's talk about turning down that tap first. This means a massive worldwide shift. We're talking about transitioning our entire energy grid over to renewables like solar and wind, swapping out gas cars for EVs and better public transit, making our buildings and factories way more energy efficient, and even totally rethinking how we grow our food. It's a huge undertaking, and right alongside turning down the tap, we have to work on that drain. This part involves both nature and some pretty cool tech. We can plant billions of trees and restore our forests, which basically act like natural carbon sponges. And we can build and deploy technology that grabs carbon from smokestacks before it even gets out, or even tech that basically acts like a vacuum, sucking CO2 directly out of the thin air. It sounds like a solid plan, right? Turn down the tap, open the drain. Easy enough. Well, in reality, the road to 2050 is paved with some of the biggest challenges humanity has ever, and I mean ever, faced. And this chart really puts the scale of the task into perspective. The gap between where our emissions are right now and where they need to be for net zero is just enormous. We're talking about a transformation at a speed and scale that is completely off the charts compared to anything in human history. And hey, don't just take it from me. The International Energy Agency, the experts in this field, they themselves call the path narrow and the required change unprecedented. The real takeaway here is that this isn't about small tweaks around the edges, it's a complete overhaul of the whole system. So why is this so unbelievably hard? Well, it's because emissions are woven into the very fabric of our modern world. As this chart shows, it's not just one thing. It's how we get our power, it's our industries, how we get around, even the food we eat. To get to net zero, pretty much every single one of these sectors has to be totally reinvented. We can pretty much boil this whole massive challenge down into three key hurdles. First, there's the tech. A huge chunk of this plan relies on us inventing and scaling up solutions like direct air capture at a pace we've just never seen. It's a huge bet on future innovation. Second, the cost. This transition is going to cost trillions of dollars. The big question is, who pays for it? And finally, there's political will. Can we actually get nearly 200 countries, all with their own agendas, to work together and act decisively? So, with all these immense challenges, you might be wondering, why even try? Well, it's because this isn't just some abstract target for governments to worry about. This matters a lot to every single one of us. You see, getting to net zero is about so much more than just hitting a number on a chart. It's an opportunity to fundamentally reinvent our world. to build cleaner cities, to create the jobs and industries of the future, and to design a more sustainable and maybe even a more equitable way of life.
So the deadline is set, 2050. The goal is net zero, that critical state of balance. The path to get there is incredibly hard, but the experts say it's not impossible. What happens between now and then? Well, that's a story that all of us are writing together, starting right now.